everybody, welcome back to episode 18 of Indie Game Dev Report. This is a podcast where we typically interview indie devs, but today I don't have anything lined up and I've been kind of slacking here. So part of this is me apologizing for not having anything because I feel bad. Second, I do want to actually provide something for you, so I will go into my own spiel on community development, community management, that type of stuff, social marketing, and social networking, and how you can leverage these platforms as a game dev to facilitate your goals. But first, I just want to explain myself a little bit. So, I don't have a great excuse, I really don't, other than I've just been working my tail off on my own project, and nothing has really jumped out at me as far as finding interviews, but that's not your fault, that's my fault, because I am just so head in my computer, and just very much in my own project right now, and I'm really sorry I didn't see this coming, but I hit some bugs, and I was facing some issues, and it was pretty terrible, actually. I could tell you about it. I have this data system. In Unity, there's a persistent data path that you can use to save persistent data, right? So I'm using that system, and it's been working pretty well for the most part, but every once in a while I will, because I'm still somewhat a noob, I guess. I'm still learning, right? I've been doing this for over 10 years and I'm still learning. But so the deal is when you're using this, you cannot ask for loaded information before it's got it, right? It seems pretty straightforward there, but for some reason I had injected some code into my script way earlier than it should have been. Maybe not way earlier. It was really just maybe 100 lines earlier, maybe less than 100 lines earlier. And it's a big script. You shouldn't have scripts as big as this one. But I started the script 4 years ago, so I haven't had the time to. I guess I've had the time. I haven't had the. I just haven't refactored it. I've refactored parts of it, and I've maintained it. I'm not adding to it anymore. But sometimes things need to go in there and just have to wedge themselves into the right spot of this. It's like a game manager script, right? So it's used heavily on every scene and everywhere throughout the game. What I was doing was I was pulling this loaded data, and it was working for everyone except for new players, right? Can you imagine having a bug where everyone can play your game as long as they've played it before? Everyone else, they can't play it. They get a black screen when they try to hit the play button, right? It was so bad because I was testing for it by deleting the data, but there's two parts to my system, and this is my fault exactly. There's no one else to blame but me. There's two parts to my system. So part of it is that I use the player prefs to keep track of whether or not they have saved data, and then I use the persistent data path to actually save the data. So the only player prefs I'm using is just a Boolean value of 1 or 0, and it's 0 if you don't have a save, and it's 1 if you do have a save. Well, I was forgetting about that, and you have to go into a registry editor to change that. So it was like a step that I hadn't thought about, and it was doing something differently for me because of that Boolean value not being changed. So I wasn't actually going in there as a new player, and I'm still kind of in the weeds as far as trying to figure it all out. It's not as straightforward as I'm making it sound here. A lot of the confusion comes from trying to deal with testers, right? Because testers all have different systems. Some of them have played the game before, some of them haven't played the game before. So yeah, I'm putting in like a clear data button that, I've got one in there that was working, but then it stopped working, and so I've got a new clear data button that it actually shuts down the game and clears the data, which isn't the best approach, but it's I think that's working for now. Anyways, I need to really fix all of that, and I feel bad about it, and that's kind of why I've been quiet, I guess. as far as the podcast goes. I've got my ear to the ground, and I'm still looking at projects, and I've got some people that I'm thinking about asking and that type of stuff. I'm just been way slow at it. I really have no excuse other than I'm just working really hard on my own game. You know, I work to the point of where I'm stressed out, and then I'm like, oh well, I need to do something that's not my game, and then I've got like a little outdoor herb garden and stuff, and you know, just like cooking. I cook a little bit, and every once in a while I'll throw something on, or I'll play a game, but mostly I'm just working on my own project all the time. And Indie Game Dev Report has just kind of slipped through the cracks, unfortunately, and I really don't want that to become a trend. I really like doing the podcast, and hopefully it doesn't go down this route of me just talking, because like as much as I enjoy all types of podcasts, the ones where they don't have interview guests are not my favorite, because you kind of get sick of hearing the one person's point of views. Even if they're okay, even if they're a good point of views, you just don't want to hear one point of view all the time. It's good to have variety, and that's something that I would really like to try to push for. One idea that I have, and this isn't set in stone or anything, because I've been playing with a few different things. Like, well, before I get into my idea, first of all, I put out a list on Twitter, and I was like, oh, you know, join this list if you're interested in a interview. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to give you an interview, because I can't give everyone an interview. But that did not take off at all. In fact, I think only one person joined that list. So I decided that's probably not the best way to do it. Now I'm thinking about another way, where now I don't really like the idea of just saying like, hey, anyone who's got a game, like, I'll interview you, because that's kind of like, what are the listeners gonna get, right? So I've decided that I kind of want to have a couple different systems in place to make sure that we don't end up with too much that is just way too random, and that we also end up with like a level of variety that's palatable, right? And so it's not always the same, and hopefully the quality level isn't too low on my side of things. I try to make up for things by having decent quality, you know, and then on the other hand, you have other podcasts where they just pump out content all the time, and the quality's hit or miss sometimes, right? We all know those podcasts. So I'm trying to avoid that, but I don't want any lulls here. Like 2 months is too long to go without anything. And since I didn't have an interview lined up, and it's kind of hard to line up interviews, you could imagine, you know, with time zones and, you know, all that different stuff, scheduling and that type of stuff. So this episode, like I said, I'm just going to talk to you myself. Unfortunately, I don't have a guest, but I am going to try to work out a system so I have more consistent flow of guests, and hopefully I can get more consistent flow of episodes that way. No guarantees, of course. So yeah, I'm thinking about a system of doing a random selection. So if you're interested in being part of this, definitely let me know on Twitter. That's probably where it's going to take place. That seems to be where I get most of my own personal traction on my social media. And you're going to learn a lot more about how I deal with social media and social networking very shortly here. Now, I have not really worked out this plan yet, but I'm thinking of some kind of just like, I don't know, think of like a spinner, right? Something as simple as that, right? Like, what if I could just get like, I don't know, a pool of devs that's constantly filling, and every month I just, you know, randomly select one. I'm not really sure how that's gonna work, but then, you know, maybe not every month, maybe every other month, right? And then the other months I could like have pre-selected ones, and if nothing works out and something falls through, then I can go through the random ones, right? And also I kind of want to have some in advance, right? So that way, and this is kind of difficult because a lot of developers will be like, oh, well, I've got a Kickstarter, it's closing in like a month and I need it podcast right now. It's like, well, that's really hard to do. I mean, it's not hard for everyone to do. It's really hard for me to do because First, we gotta interview, we gotta schedule all that stuff, we gotta record it, we gotta edit it, we gotta upload it. I like to make, the art assets and the video and stuff to bring it all together, and then that takes time. Not to mention I'm working on my own stuff, so yeah. So that's the plan. It's not set in stone, and I'm still working out the details. If you're interested, definitely let me know. Like I said, reach out on Twitter. I love to talk to people. Okay, so that brings us into community development. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with this term, it's basically, for me, I use it as a kind of catch-all term, but it's basically anything that's going to grow your community. Right. There's a lot more to it than that, because it's like gardening. I mentioned that I like to garden. Well, it's a lot like that, right? You have to weed the garden sometimes, right? You have to get rid of the people that are causing problems sometimes, right? It's like if you're a streamer, you're familiar with having to ban someone or boot someone. Same goes for Discord. When you're on Twitter, it's a little less back and forth, but you can unfollow someone if you don't like what they're sharing. And vice versa, they can unfollow you. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Twitter as a dev, that would be kind of surprising to me. It is probably the number one platform for devs. Arguably, Reddit might be, but Reddit actually has a lot of players on it too. So now I do want to get into Reddit, but the reality is that I'm not very good at Reddit. It's actually a very difficult platform for me. Not to segue too far here, but you're going to have to base your social networking on what you're comfortable with. That kind of goes without saying. Okay, so before I start just rambling and going all over the place here, because that's probably how this is going to end up, I do actually have some notes in front of me, but they're not very well laid out. Probably one of the most important takeaways here is that you need a strong foundation for a community. Now, that's going to depend on what you're trying to promote. I'm going to assume that we're all promoting games here. This is somewhat applicable to other things like streaming and any community growth, really. But gaming is, gaming. It's got its own nuances. So what I like to use is Discord, and I'm sure I'm not alone on this. Discord is super useful for this. There's other options out there, but Discord is what I know, so that's what I'm going to talk about. As far as a foundation. Now also another good option is a newsletter, right? Now some people are better at newsletters than others. I'm not good at newsletters, so I'm probably not the best person to get advice from on newsletters, but from my opinion, newsletters seem to be another level of commitment that, and like I told someone on Twitter, I think maybe 10% of my personal Discord server are following the newsletter. So, it seems to be, there's only maybe 2 or 3 that are following the newsletter that aren't on the Discord. And these numbers are small. I don't have a massive community. So I'm just saying that you should do both, probably, right? As long as you're comfortable doing both. I think number one rule is do what you're comfortable doing. Each platform is going to be different, and you're going to feel different on each platform, right? So pay attention to that, and then pay attention to how well each platform performs. For example, TikTok is a great example because it's new. No one's quite comfortable with it, especially older people. Like, I'm not even that old, and I'm already uncomfortable with the idea of, like, well, I'm just not of the Snapchat generation, right? I missed that, right? Like, I know people that use Snapchat, but I can't really get into it. I'm sorry, I'm just not really into sharing my daily activity stuff, or, I'm into sharing my game. And Twitter's a great place for that, right? So I'm not naturally jumping onto TikTok. In fact, I waited a long time before I even started looking at it, because I don't like the idea of using your face to sell things or being an influencer like that, right? But the more that I'm looking at TikTok, the more I'm realizing you don't have to follow the rules. I mean, you follow the rules. You don't have to follow the norms, is what I meant to say, right? In fact, new platforms like that are actually looking for people to break the norms, right? Of course, follow the rules, like I said. Don't do anything dangerous. don't do anything stunty, right? But see what kind of boundaries you can push without going too far, right? Bend the envelope a little bit and make some waves, but just be creative is what I'm saying. You don't have to look at, oh, this person did that TikTok trend, so I have to do that TikTok trend. I mean, you can if that's what you're into. I am not into trends. So finding trends to work with is really, really hard for me. I naturally want to do my own thing. Well, there's a way to leverage that, right? It's just one of those things. Do you have the time for it? I haven't yet. I haven't found the time to get on TikTok and really do things. I'm still in this state where I'm just learning and trying to figure out what the etiquette is, and that's important, right? So, and this is across all platforms. You're going to have to learn each platform. Granted, you don't have to take your time like I am. I spend a lot of time working on my game, like I already described, so I don't really spend a lot of time learning new platforms. I do spend time, just not a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time, so nothing really gets a lot of my time other than my game and maybe some social marketing that I know will work, right? Because if you know something works, it's really hard to go to a platform that you don't know. So, and that's actually a good thing for the people who are comfortable on those other platforms, right? Like Facebook is a great example. There was this like era of Facebook working for people and being useful. And I'm not saying it's not useful. There are groups on there for indie devs. I'm not a fan of them. I'm part of them. I rarely read or rarely post. I rarely interact with Facebook in general. And those groups are kind of cringy sometimes. So it really depends, sometimes groups are getting hacked and all types of stuff happens on Facebook. But what I'm getting at is that there was an era where it was useful to use. And Facebook kind of caught on to the fact that people were finding a use for it and then started slowly but surely making it less useful for everyone, mostly for small businesses. They made it so it seemed useful, and then they made it so you might want to buy ads because people are still using it. Well, now people aren't really using it as much anymore. But here we've got Meta, so we'll see what happens there, right? I already know some people that are jumping on board with the metaverse stuff, and to me, I'm like, it's like, do I really want to go into a virtual Facebook? I don't know. The people that are left on Facebook aren't that appealing to me, and then the people that are joining the metaverse, I'm not really sure that they're going to be appealing to me either, right? And now I don't want to get too political and too polarized, but NFTs are like a thing, right? I mean, we have to realize that it's a pretty polarizing topic in my eyes. There's people that are kind of unaware, and then there's people that are aware, and the people that are aware are one or the other, right? It's really hard for artists right now, I will say, because I'm an artist and I get these NFT calls, right? And it's like, I don't want anything to do with that. Let alone, they don't want anything to do with me. They're just looking for someone to help sell their NFTs, right? And yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a compliment, but not really if you get them all the time, right? It's not a compliment at all. In fact, it's just spam. And so I'm on the other end where I'm not really interested in working with these people just because of some of the business practices. But I don't even really want to get into the ecological impact, because that's what really upsets me about NFTs. But I'm not trying to polarize things here. What I'm trying to say is that the NFT crowd is hanging out in the metaverse, right? Because they're okay with it. So if you're working with NFTs, which I don't think you should, but if you want to, that's your deal. Metaverse might be a good place for it. I don't know. I really don't know, because honestly, I'm not sure that I plan on spending that much time there. But let's get away from some of the negativities here. Let's talk about some positive things, right? So we've got our foundation to work on, right? How do we have a good foundation, right? So one of the number one things, I think, is to, I mean, this sounds kind of obvious, but to bring your friends in, right? I mean, granted, friends is a vague word, right? But you have people already that want to see you thrive. They want to see you do well. They want to, in fact, some of these people might already be helping you to promote your product right now, right? And sometimes they do it without even knowing it. Sometimes they do it on purpose because they want you to succeed, right? When you notice these people, it's like a garden. You really have to champion these people. These people are your champion flowers in your garden, right? These people are your state fair prize winning pumpkin or whatever it is you're growing. These are the people that are going to get you through the tough times, and they're going to promote growth in way better ways than you could do on just your own. So the moment you see someone that's really on your side, do what you can to try to get them into your Discord. Do what you can to try to get them onto whatever platform they're comfortable with, and then spend some time there with them, because that is going to help you so much more in this process than you would ever know, right? I mean, sometimes when you're doing research, you'll go to these Discords that have just tons of people, right? And no one knows the moderator, no one knows the admin, right? Or you end up with this hierarchy, right? Of like people that are cool with the admin, right? And you get this weird gatekeeper nonsense that goes on that way. It depends on the Discord, right? I'm in a lot of dev Discords, and then I'm also in a lot of studio Discords. Now the difference here is that there's Discord servers made to be a developer hub, right? You're looking for work, I'm looking for a worker kind of scenario, right? I'm looking for a pixel artist, I'm looking for music. You know, sometimes you can go to these places and find people. Granted, you might not get the best work, you might not find the best job, but these things do exist, and you can promote your game on it. And I do recommend doing it, although you want to pay attention here. You don't want to just spam your game, because, first of all, you're wasting your time if you just spam your game, right? There's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. If you find a server where everyone's doing it, yeah, sure, go ahead and throw it on there and see how it works. But when it doesn't work, that's not a big surprise, because the more people that are in a Discord server, the more it filters through the information, right? So there's a happy medium of having a good level of people for promotion. Now, this isn't your own server, right? This is going to other servers with your product and saying, hey, I've got a cool GIF, check it out, and then someone says, that is a cool GIF, what is it? And you say, oh, check out my website. And then they go to your website. Or, granted, you're not supposed to sell things on Discord, right? And so definitely don't go DMing people and saying, here's my server. I mean, you can, but you might get blocked. You might get, there's a new spam button on Discord. They might mark you as spam or something like that. Report the thing, because if you're marketing on Discord, you're technically breaking the terms of service. Now, it's a little bit of a gray area, because a lot of these servers, they are for promotion. So obviously not everyone's getting in trouble for marketing, right? But it does say that you're not supposed to market on the term of service unless they've changed it, which they could have, actually. I haven't read it in a while, so Maybe we should read the terms of service here. But the thing is that everyone's doing it. So you're not going to get banned for just sharing a GIF, right? In fact, that's what Discord wants. Discord wants people on there sharing stuff. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily want you just sharing your product, but the goal here is to look at your product as not just being a product, right? You have to spin it. You have to spin it in your mind. It has to actually be spun that way too. When you're creating it, create it in a way that it's not just a product. Now, it's really difficult when you're not into marketing to start seeing things this way. As an artist, I was a terrible marketer. Or like starting out, right? And I'm still learning all the time. But I took a marketing class in college and I learned a ton. I really did. I learned a ton. The number one thing that I learned is that I really did not like marketing. And this was over 10 years ago. So I've learned a lot since then. I've been forced to learn it. I've actually started to learn how to enjoy it. And the way to enjoy it is perspective. Now, perspectives are crafted. You can't just come up with a perspective on the fly. You have to craft a perspective, right? You're making a narrative around your game in your head for you to be able to be okay with selling it. And it's not easy, no, but it's a lot easier than saying, I just want you to buy it because I need the money and I like making games and it's for sale, right? Now, you're probably wondering, how do you do that, right? Well, what I do is, first of all, my game's probably like 2 years away from launch, and I'm marketing the crap out of it the whole time. So part of it is the community itself, right? And a lot of my community is developers. And it just kind of happened that way, probably because of Twitter and because of itch.io and the places I was promoting it. I was kind of collecting fans, and the people who stuck around just happened to be mostly devs, not necessarily older devs, but mostly developers. In fact, a lot of younger developers that are new to the industry and just kind of learning development and stuff, and that's pretty cool. Nothing super young, which makes it more comfortable for me. Like I said, I'm becoming an old fart here as we speak. But I like helping people, and I like showing people how to do things. So there's some of my value, right? And everyone's got different personalities. So you're going to have to learn how to put your personality or your team's personality into the marketing of your game. There's a lot of value in you and your team. Otherwise, you wouldn't have your team, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be making a game if you weren't valuable. If no one's told you in a while, if you're making a game, that's not easy to do. You're valuable. Some people might not understand it. Some people might even tell you that you're wasting your value. But the reality is that if it's important to you, then you're doing good, right? And if it's got value, that's the number one thing here. There is value to your personality. Put that into your game. Put that into your marketing. It's never too late to start. I mean, if you've already put out the game, yeah, maybe you can't inject it into the game if you didn't put your personality into it before, or if your personality's changed or whatever, but you can inject it into your marketing, right? You can change some of your marketing around, and you can learn from your marketing mistakes and make adjustments based on either your brand, your personality traits that you think are most worthy, or heck, you could just find better art or new art. Sometimes updating assets can be really useful for games. Wow, so I went really deep into that and kind of different directions. But I did cover a lot of what I took notes on here. So I want to reiterate on some things. Do what fits your brand, right? So this is important. Your brand is always going to be changing. You're an evolving being. Your brand is an extension of yourself. you're learning, your brand is learning, right? So yeah, you might have a image, and your brand will have an image too. You're probably going to change your image more often than your brand's image. I don't know. That depends on your personality. Who am I to say that? But the thing is that your brand can change very slowly, and that's okay. Or it can change quickly, and that's okay. Some branding will gravitate differently to different people. So you want to keep an eye on who gravitates to your branding. You want a brand for your audience, right? So anyone who's been in the game dev stuff long enough will tell you that you need to come up with an audience before you come up with a game. Now, you don't have to, but that's going to help you a lot. If you come up with the people that you're trying to sell a game to before you come up with the game, you're probably going to have a better time trying to sell that game. That's just the way it is. It doesn't always happen that way as a creative. I'm making shoot 'em up pinball game. it's literally called Retro Spaceball. There's a game out there already made that I didn't find until just this year called Video Spaceball. Guess what Video Spaceball is? It's my game, but it came out in the 70s. And it did terrible. It did not do well. Of course, there's different reasons for that, and hopefully I can make a difference, right? Hopefully the 40 years or 50 years or whatever that have gone by have made a difference on things, and hopefully people just weren't ready for it. Hopefully it was because it was on a console that no one bought, because it was one of those like home Pong systems that didn't do well. But it was like a game out of like 5. Video Spaceball. Look it up. It's literally like my game, like the versus mode on my game, except my game scrolls and has. It's not like this was like 2600 style graphics. Anyways, enough on that tangent. Branding is super important. Don't be afraid to change it. Don't be afraid to evolve. Don't be afraid to go back if you realize that you made a mistake. Just do your best to be honest if you can. Of course, that's going to depend on your product. If you're not making a good game, don't tell people it's not a good game if you want to sell it. But, maybe make a better game, right? So be honest as you can. If someone tells you that they don't like it, you don't have to listen to them, but it might be helpful. You never know. You're the developer. You have to decide what you're going to listen to, what you're not going to listen to, right? All right, so I already said convert your friends, but I didn't mention from other platforms. Now, friends are going to be your easy conversions, right? You can go to them first. You don't want to go to them last, really. You can. The thing about friends is that as long as they're real friends, they're always going to kind of be there, hopefully, right? As long as you treat them with respect and you're doing the right things as a friend in return, hopefully they're going to be there later or earlier. But the benefit of getting them into something like a Discord early is that now you have another fan to help cheer you on in there. You want people like that. That's what you want. You want people that are going to say, that's awesome. Or, oh, you made a new build? I just went and played it, that type of thing, right? So yeah, you want to make these people into your super fans, right? I mean, your friends are a little bit hard to call your super fans because they were friends before the game existed, right? But you can very easily make new friends into super fans, I found. Now, if you're not familiar with super fans, there's a few different terms for it. What was it? True believers is what Stan Lee called it. Yeah, so the idea is that these are the people that are promoting you. These are the people that are hoping that you succeed more than anyone else outside of yourself and maybe your family. So they're really, really rooting for you. So you got to root for them back. You really do. If they've got a project, test it for them. Retweet their stuff. You have to champion the people that want you to succeed. That's really the name of the game here. There's a percentage, I think it's 2080 these days, where they say you want to give 80% in order to get 20% in return of your community, right? So that means that if you're making something like a piece of content, like I am today, right? You're going to hear me talk about retro Spaceball for like 20% of this, while the other 80% is going to be super useful for you, hopefully. And it's not like, it's all perspectives, right? You might in your head be saying like, oh, well, he just admitted to the fact that he's using this podcast to sell his game, right? Well, the reality is, sure, yeah, I made this podcast with the intention of hopefully having more community, not necessarily sales for my game, but hopefully, getting out there as a personality, getting out there as a developer, meeting more people was really the biggest thing, though. And it you don't have to have a game to meet people. It's easier when you do, right? I don't feel like I need to defend myself too much here. A podcast is a great way to start building a community. I mean, granted, mine is relatively small. Mostly I'm doing it for fun. I'm not doing it every month like I should be, or every week like most podcasters do. I'm clearly not taking it as seriously as the next guy, but like I said earlier, I really hope the quality is up to par, because sometimes you hear these podcasts and they're just not great. So I'm going to edit the crap out of this, and hopefully it doesn't sound like I'm rambling. So another thing you can do, and they just actually added this to Discord as like a feature, is events. Now, when I actually wrote this in my notes, this didn't exist as a feature, so I'm onto something here. The reality is that you don't need the feature to hold an event, but it makes it easier now that they have it. Now, I'm not going to get into the technicals of using the feature on Discord to throw an event. I'm going to talk about the general philosophy behind the event, which is pretty straightforward and shouldn't take too much time here. Think of something as simple as like bingo night, right? Of course, no one plays bingo, but let's use pretend here. Let's say we had an elderly server, right? As if the elderly use Discord. Well, one thing they could do to keep the elderly entertained is bingo, right? Of course, it's not that easy. Maybe you could try bingo. I don't think too many people. Maybe if there's prizes, right? Maybe people will play bingo for prizes. The thing is that you have to make it somewhat exciting, right? Bingo's not very exciting these days. It was when we were little kids, but it just doesn't do the trick anymore. I don't really have any great like one thing, but think of D&D, right? A lot of developers play Dungeons and Dragons. Well, there's a lot of D&D servers out there, and there's a lot of there's probably even more just personal like group chats of people playing D&D. Well, there's a device within D&D that keeps the game going, and that's you're relying on a community. It's a small community, it's just your party, but that is a thing, right? So if you actually bring some of these D&D kind of mechanics into your server, you can get people to feel like they belong. And honestly, the addiction part of it is a thing, but you're not going to have to deal with that on Discord as much as you would say on an MMO, right? And I mean, I don't want to get into politics of MMOs. Clearly, there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. And then there's also a good way to play and a bad way to play, right? It's like the family that they didn't take care of their baby because they were playing the baby simulator game. Yeah. So you don't want to be that person, obviously, but you don't want to create those people either. So there is, when you're making an MMO, there is that. But when you're just on Discord, you don't really have to worry about people getting addicted to Discord. And if you do, then maybe just tell them in a DM like, hey, maybe try something else for a bit because I see you on here all the time. But yeah, you probably only do that when you're really concerned because you don't want to turn people away from your Discord. In fact, the more time you spend there interacting with people, the better it's going to be for everyone, right? I mean, unless you're uncomfortable there. And that goes back to rule number 1 is be comfortable, right? If you're not comfortable having a community, then there's the option of hiring someone to do it for you. Honestly, if you're not into communities, game development might not be the best place for you because, I mean, yeah, we're all kind of introverted to a degree, right? You hear that over and over again, that a lot of game developers are introverted. And that's relatively true. It is, but you kind of have to force yourself to be an extrovert to benefit the game. And that's what I do. I'm a natural introvert, but here I am with a podcast talking to strangers. Of course, there's no stranger with me here today, but that's actually making this more difficult, believe it or not, because I'm used to having someone else to listen to. So I mentioned staying on brand and doing what fits your brand. Now, there is the occasion that your community might step off brand, right? And now here you have to use your best judgment, right? Because if they go off brand real far, they might not come back, right? Or they might be changed forever. If you can prevent that type of thing, you probably should. But if it's just a little bit off brand, that's fine, you know? One example I have of this is that I have this little channel. It's not even a big channel. It's just a tiny channel of retro like aesthetics, right? And I would post like a boombox or something like that, and people can relate to it, you know, because my game's a retro game and it kind of fits the brand, but I'm not selling stereos, you know what I mean? So there's wiggle room within that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If your community runs in one direction, pay attention to them. You know, if you see that they might be going in a direction that could be harmful, maybe try to corral them in a better direction. If you think that's the right thing to do, you really have to use your best judgment here. Here's one, and I saw this a lot a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I started seeing this more, and then it started to fade away. So I don't know if it's a big of a thing anymore, but just a warning, I guess. If you've got your own server, sometimes people will make like role-specific chats. Well, the problem with that is that all of a sudden you're dividing your community up, right? So it can be fun if you have a big community to divide it up, but if you have a small community, there's probably no reason to divide it up. Granted, for me, I have one role for my testers that I divide up from my non-testers, and that's so they can get pings and that type of thing. That's a good way to do it. If you're using channels that are locked to certain roles, that's probably not a good way to do it unless it's for something like testers or something. If you've got your internal team with your Discord, then yeah, you know, bring your internal team onto separate channels and have them give them places to discuss things about the community without being heard by the community, because sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you have to talk about the community, and it's not something that you want the community to really see because it looks bad. It's not actually bad. It's actually good for the community to talk about them. It just, no one likes being talked about behind their backs, and so there's no point in making that obvious, I guess is what I'm saying. But sometimes you do need to discuss what's going on with the community. Okay, so another point here, I want to make this really clear. Different communities happen at different speeds. This is 100% true. You're never going to find two communities that happen at the same speed. I mean, maybe close, right? But the thing is that every game's got different needs. Every community's got different needs. Every game is going to build a community differently. It's just that's just the way it is. It's not an easy thing to do either. You will basically have to just kind of figure out your game's nuances and your community's nuances. That being said, there's a whole lot of crossover and similarities that you can find from other communities. A great thing to do is to locate similar communities. Find communities that you want to mirror, right? If you see a community is doing something that you want to do, it's not bad to start copying off of some of these servers, right? Or some of these communities. They most likely copied from someone to begin with. If you feel bad about copying community activities and stuff like that, work on, like I said, one, your perspective, but also throwing a spin on things, right? Make it your own. Be creative with it. You're a game developer. I mean, it's not like you're an uncreative person. It's just, this is a little bit out of your wheelhouse. Think about it like this. What if you were designing a game for, I don't know, a gymnasium full of kids, right? Say you were a gym teacher and you had to design a game, a field game, like a field sport game or something like that. Think about it like that. It's still game design. It's just not what you do every day, but you're probably still pretty good at it. You just got to give yourself a chance to do it, right? And, I think part of the biggest hurdle here is getting yourself to do it. So yeah, just sometimes, it can be scary because, let's face it, if you make a mistake, it could cause problems for you. Big problems, little problems, we don't know. So I think another trick here is to start small. Granted, you're not going to see any big waves if you start small, but you'll get an idea for how everything kind of flows, right? Well, one comment I had because I've been working on trying to get like a video together on the subject of community development, and obviously I have a lot of information on it here since I'm just rambling on. But I've been talking to a lot of different people also, trying to get some different resources and getting different perspectives on the matter. And one of the things that stuck out to me was a friend of mine said that one thing he couldn't stand was finding like help videos of people saying, oh, this is how you grow a community, but they themselves don't have a community, right? And I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing yourself. Oh, you've only got like 50 people in your Discord or so. What are you talking about Discord for? You don't know. The thing is that different servers are going to have different levels of potency. And if you have a server filled with people that you don't actually know, they're not going to be as potent as people that are actually playing your game or that are actually testing the game. Another example of this is if you go, like I was saying earlier, like kind of door to door and just DMing people saying like, oh, you want to join the Discord? Or let's take it up or take it down a notch, right? And say like, you posted a GIF, then someone said like, oh, that's really cool, right? So at that point, you give them the link, right? And they say, oh, I'm playing it right now. This is a lot of fun. I've even got some feedback for you. That's when you say, well, maybe you want to join the Discord if you're that into it. And a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, you got a Discord? That's awesome, right? So that's okay. Let's try another scenario, right? So let's say someone emotes on your GIF, right? You can figure out who that person was and DM them, but do you want to? Probably not. Probably not, because that comes off as spammy and weird. No one really does that. So if you do that, maybe you might pull in some people. But those are the people that may or may not really care about your game. And yeah, the numbers look great, Some people only look at the numbers. Some people say, oh, well, this Discord only has 50 people in it. That game's never going to do good. And some other people will say, oh, wow, this Discord's got 300 people in it. This game must be doing great. But the reality is that I've been part of games that had Discords with lots and lots of people, and the game didn't sell, right? I'll tell you why. It's because no one cared. No one cared at all. They did not care. They were there because someone dragged them there. They might have known the person that dragged them there. They didn't know the devs. They didn't know the dev team. They might have said one thing and forgot that they even had the server, right? That's just the way it goes, you know. And then let's talk about pings again. So if you ping all the time, then there's going to be people that aren't into that, and they're going to turn off the pings, and that's okay if you want to ping them all the time. But the thing is that let's say that you really want everyone to get a notification, like you just launched your game. Well, if you've already been giving everyone pings on every little thing, like, oh, I made some pixel art, everyone, like, most of them have probably turned off their notifications. In fact, most of the people I know, they turn off their notifications right away. So you kind of have to charm people into turning their notifications back on, is what I've found. And this is not easy to do. You kind of have to be creative here as well. If someone wants to get the notification, they will turn on their notifications. That's what it comes down to. So you basically have to make them want the notification. And that's, like I said, it's really difficult to do because your first instinct is to you have something you want people to be notified of. You go around telling people. That's just how it is, right? Well, all of a sudden people will expect that of you, and they won't care about the notifications at all because they'll know if it's really important, you'll just go and tell them. So that can kind of make it difficult, but and then again, it's going to depend on your game and how you want to do things. The size of your community is going to make a difference, and also the connection you have with your community. My community is extremely DM driven. It's not something that I'm super pleased with. I mean, it's not like I'm unpleased with it. In fact, I'm super happy with the fact that I get DMs. I think that's awesome that I have people talking to me and stuff like that. But it would be even cooler if they were all talking to each other, right? Because it's, I mean, like I said, it's cool that I've got different people talking to me at different times of the day. But we're all in the same chat room here. You know what I mean? We could all be talking to each other, and sometimes they just want to talk to me, and maybe they're just not comfortable. And sometimes that you just have to break the ice. And I wish I had more time to do things like events and stuff like that, because I feel like that would do a great job of breaking the ice for some people. One thing I do is if someone reaches out to me for help, I will do the best I can to help them, of course, but I will also try to find someone else in the community that I can link them up with. And I will always ask the person first if they feel like being linked up with someone who might need help in their expertise, right? And that's probably one of the coolest parts about my community, is that there are a bunch of devs in it of all different types. You know, it's not super easy to get feedback from strangers and stuff, but if you know someone who you trust, and then they bring someone on, it's a lot easier to trust them. It just is. Yeah. Right? So that's what I do for people. I definitely recommend doing that. If you have a lot of devs in your server, I definitely recommend trying to link them up if anyone asks for help. I mean, like I said, try to help them as best you can. Because they're also asking you for help because like when someone messages you for something, yeah, sure, they might want something, but they also messaged you, and you have to like recognize that they could have messaged anyone, and they messaged you. So yeah, maybe they want something from you, maybe they want help or something like that. But this is someone from your server. This is your tester. You need to let them know that you're thankful that they chose you as someone that they can confide in and trust. So yeah, be thankful, be helpful, and be positive as much as you can. Also, obviously, not everyone's having the best time of their lives, but the more you can make it seem that way, the easier it is for everyone to pretend that. Yeah, I mean, it's a little weird to say it like that, but I don't know. Sometimes, you know, me personally, when I was young, I used to go to chat rooms and Yahoo and all that stuff and just try to make friends because I was depressed or I was sad. I didn't know what else to do. I was bored, maybe. There's all types of reasons why people go online. So I think it's just important to be there for people. I really think that's going to help people a lot more than they expect. And that's how you're going to generate super fans and get respect for yourself and your game. You know, if you're really short with people, they're going to recognize that, and they're not going to stick around, right? But also, if you're really long-winded, people are going to recognize that too, and they're not going to want to talk to someone who talks their ear off every time, right? So, use your best judgment, learn from your mistakes. There's a lot of experimentation that goes on with community development, and that's always going to be this way. You can't have marketing without experimentation, right? Like I said earlier, sometimes a little bit goes a long ways, sometimes it doesn't. So, when in doubt, use caution. It's that simple, right? There are ways to view your community as different roles outside of the Discord roles. I don't really know how to explain this. It really isn't the best wording for me to use this way, but that's the way I have it written. So basically, you want to know who to kick and who to keep, right? You know, if someone's negative all the time, like, it depends. You know, a lot of times I'll DM them and ask them if they're okay, because sometimes if someone's just negative all the time, maybe they need help. You know, maybe they need to talk to someone. And that's okay to talk to your community. Yeah, it's a little bit outside of the wheelhouse, but you're a person. You can relate to people. Do your best. Granted, you know, like in my community, a lot of them are devs, so it's kind of easy to relate to them. You know, if something's going wrong with their project, I know exactly what that feels like. Sometimes I even know what to do to help. You know, that type of thing. So there, you know, lurkers, right? We just talked about how you could have a server full of people that are just lurking and not doing anything, but there are good ways. Sometimes it is good to have people that are lurking, right? I'm a lurker. I will I'll straight up explain myself here. I go into Discords like crazy. I have and I have 2 different Discord accounts. Because I hit the ceiling. You can only have 100 Discord servers on a free non-Nitro account, and I haven't upgraded to Nitro yet. I mean, I think if you have the money, it's probably a good idea to. I kind of want to. I don't have the money right now, so it's kind of expensive. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that I go into Discords, and sometimes I don't say much. Sometimes I'll just post a GIF of my game every once in a while, or I'll just view and read what people are talking about. Sometimes I'll throw emotes in there. It really depends on the server. For example, I'm part of a Phoenix game dev server, and it's really, really small. So it's really easy to get to know people because they're located in the same city, they do the same thing, and there's not many of us, so we all kind of know each other pretty well by now. And it's great. They have a daily stand-up thing. It's like an event, but it's every single day. So it keeps track of how long you've been posting every day about what you're working on, and it's a great way to not only ask for help, which I just did yesterday, but also to find projects that are awesome, find people that are cool. You know, I mean, this is a local server, so I was really, really happy when I found that. So I would definitely recommend looking for local servers too, just so you can have a sense of community that's close to home, because I think that will help you in making a community that isn't close to home. You can kind of find the crossovers, especially when you're using Discord for both. It makes it really easy. Okay, so yeah. Self servers. Now I've kind of just made this up. I kind of fall into this category too, where I will kind of learn my way around a Discord channel or server and learn the channels and just kind of find how it's going to work for me. And this goes for mostly the indie channels that are like really big, right? Indie World Order is a good example. I don't have many conversations in Indie World Order. So as I was talking, someone messaged me, and it was someone helping me promote my game because of them being part of the community, me being part of their community. We share stuff online. I go to their Twitch stream. Sometimes they play my game. Sometimes they play other people's games. Sometimes I'm just hanging out. Sometimes we'll be on voice chat. This is a real connection that I made, and now and of course this person's always been pretty helpful to me. I met him through streaming my game, so that makes it a lot easier to say that they're super helpful. But they've continued to be helpful is really what I'm getting at here. Like, yeah, it's great to find someone to stream your game, but if you can make a friend out of that person, that's way better, right? And I'm not saying you should be all weird and try to friend someone for ulterior motives. That's never gonna come off right. You gotta mesh with someone, right? And me and my friend mesh great, so we continue to chat. I help him out any way I can. He helps me out any way he can. And now he just mentioned me because someone was talking me on a server, or was talking about me on a server. He chimed in and said a bunch of great things about me. And just to clear up any confusion, it wasn't bad things that were being said about me. They were just talking about my game and talking about how they were streaming it. And this other streamer jumped in and said that it was great. So that looks great. That's the type of stuff that we're going for here. It doesn't happen right away, and it's going to happen somewhat organically, right? You're going to set things in motion for the most part, but things are going to mostly happen organically. And it's a really great experience to watch things unfold where you have people talking about your product or your game because of, the genuine energy that you put into it, right? And I think that's going to be a huge takeaway here, is that you need to be genuine. Honesty, like I said, it's so important. Transparency is so important, especially with things like Kickstarters and stuff. Like, oh my gosh, granted, there is a line that you can't really let people cross when you're developing, right? You can't let them have the source code, for example, right? Because who knows what's going to happen then. Well, you could, but it's a different game all of a sudden, right? Then it's open source. It might not be the best for Steam, right? So I guess what I'm saying is that there's some things that the players are going to be in the dark of, and that's just the way games work. The gamers don't know how the engine works typically. Sometimes they know a little bit, or they know more than you would expect. But the reality is that they're playing the game because they don't really necessarily want to know what's under the hood. They just want it to work. They want to enjoy the experience. They don't want to have to think about every line of code that went into making it happen. That's our job. Now, I know this is getting long here, but I wanted to get into my methodologies a little bit. One thing that I do, and I think is really, really important, is that I take notes on everyone that I talk to on Discord, especially if I'm friends with them. If they test my game, if they join my Discord, I will write these things down. If they tested my game a second time, I will write that a second time. And one of my friends from the local group actually just tested my game a second time, and I had not marked that he had tested it the first time, and I forgot. And I actually had to ask him, "Did you test it?" And he said, "Yeah, you don't remember?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I felt terrible, right? Because it's not that I didn't remember; it's just that I was filtering through like a whole bunch of thoughts in my head, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong with my game, and he's helping me, but he's giving me information that might not be valid because he might have already tested it, and now I'm looking at my notes and I'm saying, did I not take the note, right? So take notes. You're gonna want to take notes. There's a little spot for it. If you go into the profile on Discord, you can you can totally take notes. It's yeah. I even if someone like if you figure out that someone likes RTSs, right? They like RTSs. If they like music, rhythm games, type in they like rhythm games. That type of stuff is important to people, right? And it's going to be important to you if you want to make good conversation with these people. And maybe that's a little overkill. Maybe some people might think that's kind of creepy or whatever. But when you have a large community, it gets really, really difficult. I don't even have a large community, and it's already really difficult because I'm constantly getting DMs from different people. Some of them have tested it before. Some of them are friends. Some of them I have never spoken to before. Some of them are people saying that they have my Steam account, right? So you're talking to people all the time when you're doing this type of thing. So you want to take notes. That's a huge part of my methodology. Another thing is design pillars. You might have heard this term before. If you're a game designer, design pillars, So basically, I come up with 3 really, really important things for my brand. And I do this for pretty much anything. I do it for the podcast. I do it for my game. I do it for my studio. I will break things down into pillars. And actually, someone I met from that Phoenix Game Dev group taught me this. And they actually did join my Discord server too. If you come up with 3 really good things to work for, 3 goals for your product, and just stick to them, like really stick to them. Ask yourself, does it fit the 3 pillars? It's a lot like asking yourself if it fits the core, right? You come up with a core mechanic. Does it fit the core, right? The 3 pillars for retro Spaceball are its retro aesthetic, the playability, right, is a huge one, and then also in old style in unique ways, right? So I'm constantly asking myself if what I'm doing for the game fits those things, right? Now those are pretty general, and sometimes it's okay to have things general. Sometimes you want them to be more locked down. It's going to depend on your product. For me, the retro aesthetic covers the art, the music, even some of the gameplay. Playability largely covers gameplay, but it also covers trends. It covers, what people expect. Expectations fall into playability. Old style in unique ways. Now, this is where I get to be creative. I get to say, someone on Twitter posted on my tweet that it reminded them of a game called Star Castle. And I'd never played Star Castle because it's an old Vectrix game. And I saw it, and immediately I was like, holy cow, my eyes lit up. And I said, I need to learn more. And he sent me a video, and now I'm like coming up with ideas instantly. And so are they. They're coming up with ideas as well. So that was awesome. That was a cool experience. And that stuff happens a lot with me because I want to make the players feel like they're enjoying a retro experience that's creative, right? Something that is, well, first of all, aesthetically pleasing. Second of all, plays nicely. But third, it's creative as well. It's doing something old in a new way, right? And that's different than retro aesthetic to me. It really is, because retro aesthetic is just kind of doing new things in a way that seem old, right? Well, doing old things in a way that seem new is different. It really is. And I'm making that distinction in my core pillars. And I think some people might find that kind of confusing, and it may or may not work great for my game, but it's my game. Yeah. So that's just that, right? Now for the podcast, it's different. I want to make sure that people feel inspired. I want to make sure that people are learning, and I want to be sustainable. I want to help the industry. I want to help game devs, right? That's what I want to do. And I know that's more than 3, and I kind of generalize things here. But the idea is the same, right? You can take this and work it into your game. Figure out what are the 3 number 1 things that are most important about your game. Heck, you could even have profit on there. I'm sure there's tons of developers out there that have profit on their major or their design pillars. That would not surprise me at all, right? For me, as a studio, sustainable profitability is one of my pillars. Because without sustainable profitability, you don't have a studio. So it is quite important. Now, the idea of a pillar is, obviously, pillars hold things up, right? Well, these pillars are going to hold up the project. That's the idea. You need 3 because any good tripod, right, has 3 legs. You could have 4. You could have more. The thing about having more than 3 is that what is core all of a sudden? What is most important? How do we balance things? All of a sudden, those questions get really difficult. When there's only 3, it's really easy, and for me, it's easier to come up with a generalized, encompassing pillar rather than to come up with 3 pillars that are similar and say like, oh well, now we need 3 more pillars. No, I just come up with a pillar that encompasses what it needs to, right? So yeah, work that into your branding, work that into your game design, work that into your studio design. Yes, your studio's design, how your studio is designed. That's going to make a difference on how your games come out, how your community comes out. The more you think about this stuff, the better off you're going to be. Of course, you do need to actually work on the game at times too. But you want to plan this stuff out as much as possible. Okay, let's see here. We're getting close to the end of my notes here. I mentioned that we had a daily stand-up in the Phoenix Discord server, and that's super cool. That relies on a bot. Now, I didn't set up that bot. Someone else did. And I don't really know exactly what went into it. But I have set up some bots before, and it's not super easy. It's not super difficult. It shouldn't be too hard for a game dev. Granted, it's different than Unity. It's different than Game Maker. It's different than Unreal. So, there are websites to help you. There are YouTube videos out there. You're going to have to learn the bot stuff on your own. But they are super useful. Same with Discord roles. Like, I'm not going to jump into how to do Discord roles and stuff like that, but use them. Verified servers, now that's a thing, right? There are pros and cons to that. When you're verified, you're more likely to get spam accounts. I don't know if they're working on ways of fixing that or if it's going to get better in the future. I sure hope so. I don't have a verified server account. But maybe I will in the future. I'm really not sure on all of that. So yeah, I've gone into Discord quite a bit here. The reality is that I've been working on this for years now. This spiel that I just gave, and I'm still working on it, and I'm probably going to refine it and make a video on it, possibly a series of videos since it's a lot of information. But the reality is that Discord is changing very, very fast, probably faster than I can keep up with it at this point because I've got my game to work on, I've got my podcast to work on. Just learning about Discord for the sake of learning about Discord is not something that I run out and do. It's something that I do when I have to. So, yeah, I'm almost a little bit behind on how quick things are. But the reality is that most of us are. Discord's just moving way too fast. And honestly, I kind of see myself migrating in the future because I don't know. It just seems like maybe 1 or 2 years left before the platform is maybe not so good. Who knows? Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. So I guess the takeaway in that is to be versatile, keep your ear to the ground, and be ready to change. I'm looking at different engines now. After Retro Spaceball, I might be changing engines just because Unity's IPO and they're changing the way they do things, and who knows how long they can still be a decent company, Who knows if they are now? It's hard to say. But I'm kind of stuck using them for the time being. But yeah, I feel like I covered a lot. It's probably getting long here. I'd like to get into other stuff, so I'm just going to vaguely or very quickly go into other networking. I know I mostly talked about Discord here, and I spend most of my time in Discord and using Discord. If you follow me on Twitter, you might be a little bit surprised because my Twitter is doing better than my Discord. And let me just kind of explain myself on that, right? So I started my Twitter account back in 2009. Now, I didn't really use it until 2017. And when I started to use it, I really didn't have much trouble with it at all because it had kind of like given me a tenure kind of thing. Twitter does this thing where if you've had the app for more than 10 years, you get a boost. You do. I don't know if it's written somewhere or anything, but you sure feel it because all of a sudden people start following you. All of a sudden it just seems easier when you've been using it for longer. So that helped me for one. Second, I started super early in the development of Retro Spaceball. I had like some gray box stuff done, and I think I had just gotten the gray box stuff out of there and put in some art, and that was when I started tweeting the very first level. The game wasn't done yet, I would have to go back and check to see what I actually tweeted, but I think it was honestly like the logo or something like that. Marketing promo materials because I didn't have a game yet. I had something that I was directing people to on itch, but it wasn't very well done, and it was hardly a game at all. Granted, enough people liked it, and enough people gave me pointers that it grew into something, and I kind of had a feeling that it would, which is why I'd started the project in the first place. So part of the reason why my Twitter is doing okay is because I've been tweeting a lot ever since 2017. I definitely spend a lot of time on Twitter. I watch it. I see the trends, and I'm kind of following them or not following them, just deciding myself. For example, I recently stopped doing the, if you're on Twitter at all, you might know what I'm talking about here. There's these threads, right? Where they do like Wishlist Wednesday and Screenshot Saturday threads. And those have just completely taken over the hashtags. And at this point, I'm actually not doing them at all. I might do them again in the future, but I got really weird like numbers, like metrics from that. So like what happened was I think maybe 7 months ago maybe, I started doing the screenshots. Man, maybe it was more like 8 months ago. I started doing those Screenshot Saturday and Wishlist Wednesday threads, and instantly I started getting a lot more follows. Now, some of these people, they put on rules on there. They're like, number 1, like this tweet. Number 2, retweet this tweet. Number 3, follow me. Number 4, I might wishlist your game, that type of stuff. And that's not what I was doing. I was saying really quickly, share your indie game with like a little arrow, or it's Wishlist Wednesday, share your indie game with a little arrow, and then I would promote my game. I would say like, I would devote the rest of the tweet to me, right? I would put my own game on the image, like a GIF or a video, and I would usually say like wishlist link or a itch.io link or both, and say like something about the new feature. And those seemed to be working pretty well, and that's why I continue to do them. More people were seeing the tweet, but it was a lot of the same people every time. And a lot of these people don't really care about my game. They care about their own game, and they care about these threads, and they're like really into the threads. A lot of these people, they'll go into each and every single one of the threads they can find that day, and they'll just kind of spam their game on each one. And I did that for a little bit too, so don't feel too bad when I say spam like that. Sometimes you have to deal with what the platform is making you do, right? And that type of trend, it's like you kind of have to try it to see what it actually does. Well, after trying it, I realized that, you know, sticking your tweet in all of these threads is not a good look, right? Because other people are going to see that. Like, especially if you're just copy pasting the same thing in each one. Like, I don't know, it feels nice when someone says like, oh, thanks, Rik, or whatever, before they copy and paste it, but it's still the same to me. You know what I mean? Especially if you see it, thanks, Joe, here's my tweet. Thanks, Dave, here's my tweet. Thanks, you know, I don't know, Colleen, I gotta use a girl's name, right? Thanks, whoever, this is the tweet, you know, it's like, well, you're just spamming your game now, you know? So what does that help? I don't know. I wasn't getting it. I was getting the most from putting out the threads themselves, right? And when I started doing it, I wasn't seeing a lot of other devs doing it. I was seeing a lot of influencers doing that. You know, your indie dev streamer type people doing that. But then I started to see more and more because it was taking off, right? This trend was taking off a few months, or 6, 7, 8 months ago, and you ended up seeing people with 2 accounts doing it at the same time, right? And then you realize that there was like a third account behind this account that was doing it. It's like, wow, you know. And I'll be completely honest, I have 3 Twitter accounts myself. I have one for myself, I have one for my game, and I have one for this podcast. And I was doing some screenshots and Wishlist Wednesdays on the podcast, but promoting other people's games and stuff. So I was doing a little bit of that, but I stopped. And I the reason why I stopped was because there was an enlightening thread that went out. I think it was IGL, Indie Game Lover, put out. And it wasn't saying that threads are bad, but there were a lot of comments in there that were saying that threads were bad. Like, people were just so sick of them that they were actually, muting the people, the devs, that they still wanted like to be mutes with, that they wanted to be mutuals with, but they didn't want to look at their tweets anymore, so they mute them. Now that's rough, right? Because now you have someone that you're following that you think is following you, and technically they are following you, but they're not seeing your tweets anymore. And you don't know that either. So nothing indicates to you that like you can go and unfollow this person because technically they're not really following you. They've muted you. They're not going to see you when you release your game. They might as well have unfollowed you. It's almost like a meaner thing to do because it's anonymous. You know, no one knows that you stopped looking at their stuff. I don't know why you would mute someone unless you were unfollowing them also. But sometimes you see people mute people. Yeah, I really don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm not someone that mutes people. I will unfollow people if I see things that I don't want to see, right? That's the way it works for me. Honestly, I will follow most of the devs that follow me, but that's because I'm interested in what they're working on. It's not because I do some type of follow for follow thing. And I feel like a lot of the people that do follow me are looking for that. So sometimes I'll give them a week, 2 weeks even, and I keep track of this stuff. Like I said, I'm on Twitter I'm on Twitter long enough to know who is who when it comes to follow, unfollow nonsense, right? I've been using the platform long enough to recognize. So if I like someone's thing, I'll let them know, you know? And heck, sometimes I'll let them know and not follow them because I can't follow everybody, you know what I mean? In fact, I went through and unfollowed a bunch of people that had not posted in a couple of years because, like I said, I've been using Twitter for a good 4 years now, like actively. And some of those people, they were basically dead accounts, right? Well, I don't recommend doing that anymore because what happened was that a lot of the people that were following me, well, it's this weird thing. Maybe I should recommend it, maybe not. I don't know, because a lot of people have been unfollowing me the last couple months, and I'm not really afraid to admit this. It's definitely a thing based on the trends. So what was happening previous was that I was gaining about 90 followers a month, which is like a lot for me, right? Now I'm losing about 9 followers a month. so to give you an idea, now 2 things did happen here, right? First, I stopped doing the threads, and second, I stopped I unfollowed a lot of dead accounts. Now those, you'd say, like, those dead accounts, if they're dead, why would they unfollow you back? Well, sometimes they're not actually dead. They just stopped doing game dev stuff, and they just don't tweet anymore. They still exist as a Twitter account, and they still apparently go through and unfollow people back or whatever. And that's okay. If you're not following them, you can't expect them to follow you back, right? Especially if it's just some account from 2 years ago that you never really spoke to. I mean, you have to look at what you're trying to get out of these relationships. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but there is that. You have to, I mean, if someone clearly only retweets clearly only tweets their own stuff, then you can't really expect them to tweet your stuff, right? And if you want people to tweet your stuff, you probably want to follow people that do some retweeting. So yeah, if you only tweet your own stuff, people are going to look at you like maybe they don't want to follow you because there's a chance that you won't ever retweet their stuff. So there's some reciprocation here that you need to pay attention to. And that's my number one thing for Twitter is reciprocation. A lot of people, they don't quite understand it. But if someone comments, I like to return the favor and comment on something of theirs, right? If someone posts something that I like, I will like it, you know what I mean? And sometimes they will go and like something that I posted. Well, sometimes I'll just go right back and retweet what they posted. Well, sometimes I'll go back and retweet what I posted. Now, it might sound a little fishy, right, from the outside perspective, but the reality is that I like something. I want to promote it. It would be even cooler if they were promoting for me at the same time, or if they felt some type of reciprocation from that. But I like it anyway, so I'm just going to like it. And sometimes I will just like and retweet and comment because I really like it. And that's just organic social network usage. Sometimes you really like something you see. So if someone does that for me, I try to do it back. Even though it might not be something that grabbed me, I try. I try to keep it as honest and genuine as possible. If it's not something that I can appreciate, then I don't pretend to. Sorry if you yourself are a dev who liked something that I did and I didn't like your stuff back. I'm sorry. I probably missed you, is the reality of it, because I can't simply go and like back every single like. That's very difficult and time consuming to do. But I do that as much as possible. And like I said, I try to keep it as genuine as possible. I will literally go into your tweets on your page and look for something that I can like, that I can genuinely enjoy because you like something from mine, right? Also, it gives me a chance to see that you're a real person, that you're not a bot, that you're not just some company promoting just you and yourself and liking tweets every once in a while or something like that. There's a lot of weird Twitter accounts out there, a lot of weird ways to use Twitter. So yeah, I'm pretty keen on the types of people that I actually want to interact with, and I can usually tell who they are because let's face it, game devs, we look a certain way on Twitter. We can't help it. We like to talk about our games. And hopefully we like to promote other people's games too. Well, my voice is getting hoarse. This conversation has gone very long. I feel like I covered a lot. I know that you probably have more questions, and I definitely hope that you reach out to me with them, because this, like I said, is something that I'm continuing to work on, something that I'd like to grow into like a real document, something that I can actually present to people, whether it's in video form or a online document or something like that. I really want to provide information in a way that is actually going to help people. So let me know if this is helpful. I think that would be the first step. Yeah, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining this a little bit weird, different podcast from me. This has been Indie Game Dev Report, and everyone have a great evening. Take care.